I gotta say though, so with this being a Tim Burton film, this was extremely dark and black and gray color palette wise compared to a lot of the other stuff he does. But I really do appreciate once we get to there's two sequences where they actually bother to have like regular color, I guess. So we have the flashback that Todd does back to him and his wife and his daughter, and that seemed like it was very like this like blooming, really bright, almost like pastel color palette. Everything was very pretty. Life was still good at the time. So I really like the way that we do that high contrast of, everything is shit now. The world itself is shit, not just Todd, but the world itself is shit because of, what's now different from the past when everything was bright and beautiful. So I love just that color palette and just that framing in general. That's different between those two. Yeah. And then when it's Miss Lovett's fantasy about the future, I think that it's the same thing but in a different way. We get those like classic Tim Burton colors and contrast going on. And I think that really works well to kind of both her warped perception and understanding of what a good future is going to look like, whereas what Todd had was real, and we had more realistic lighting and colors in his flashback of, what was good. And then Miss Lovett's, kind of looking ahead to what the future could be in kind of that fantasy sequence. It's not that. It's these like kind of weird warped colors. There's still kind of like that darker tone to it. Obviously, Todd is not having a fun time. So I kind of took it two ways of her warped perception is, being mirrored by that color palette just being kind of off and not natural, as well as it being not the future that Todd wants. So because there's that clash of the perfect world and then it not being a future Todd wants, that it's their combination that's kind of causing that color differentiation. And that's, reading too much into it. But that's the thought that kind of carries me through that and makes me really enjoy, kind of seeing those two scenes that are just abnormally colorful compared to everything else. And they're all the past or the future because everything now is shit. Yeah. And we can only look forward to better things or think back on when things were good. And I kind of like that thought.
Well, off of that note, I have one that I feel like pretty much fits.
Sure.
So, take you on a little ride here, but I promise it's getting back to that point.
Sure.
So logistically, I don't know how many people you can kill without arousing some suspicion. Businesses are often based on referrals, word of mouth, and if those mouths are being eaten, especially back in that time, right?
Yep.
You don't have advertising really unless you could stand outside your shop and like, hey, come get your haircut in here.
Yeah. I don't know. I think kicking Pirelli's ass in the beginning was all that advertisement, right?
And I said, for example, no one would miss that Pirelli dude. Miss is probably a strong word, but wouldn't they wonder? Like, hey, whatever happened to that goofy fuck with the brightly colored clothes that would stand out, by the way, because everyone more or less was done up to look dead in this movie.
And the only guy with an Italian accent.
But, he'd like break out into song in public and have random shaving competitions, and we all watched for some reason, which was weird because that's not really a thing. But yeah, he sold his own piss, and he made that kid working for him in the wig pedal it. It seems like ever since that weird depressed guy got into town and beat him in the shaving competition, everyone's been singing a lot. But yeah, the kid works for the meat pie lady that totally wants to bone the sad guy. And, no one bought her pies before, but now that depressed guy's working for her, everyone's singing, and some of my friends have gone missing, and her pies are the bomb. Probably unrelated. Anyway, they're hanging a kid in the middle of town square today. You want to go?